it's only appropriate to get started a webinar on gratitude to really thank all of you for spending the next 45 minutes with us today. It really is appreciated. Thank you. I think it was around 2015 or so where our guest today and I were having dinner at La Gondola restaurant in Los Angeles over some excellent drinks. And Dave asked me what I thought was one of the most important aspects for not-for-profit leadership. And I remember answering him that the answer to that question really is, I believe, passion. And I felt then, and frankly, I still believe today, that passion for your cause is absolutely crucial to our success, especially as fundraisers. I think that really is crucial. And Dave Linn, has an incredible passion, absolutely incredible passion for the concept of gratitude. He's even known, as you saw in the flyers and the information that I sent out, he's known as the gratitude dude. So I felt that it was only fitting that to bring the guy who knows more about the subject than anyone that I know about the power of gratitude to share his insights on the topic. And frankly, just in time for Thanksgiving, which I think is great. Before we jump in, I just want to mention, we're going to be doing this a little bit differently. I am going to be asking Dave some questions, but we want this to be also a discussion. So if you can use if you have any questions along the way, the reaction button at the bottom, if you click on that, there's a thing where you can raise your hand. So please do raise your hand, and I'll call on you as you have questions that come up. And we're looking forward to having an interactive discussion as much as possible today. And with that, let's jump right in. So I'm going to ask Dave the very first question of the day, and that is, how did you become known as the gratitude dude, and do you wear a cape?
All right, I'll answer the first one first. So I have a background also in nonprofit fundraising, but on the for-profit side. So co-founded a company called the Generosity Series, which we recently folded as a consequence of COVID, unfortunately, but it was a fundraising platform for nonprofits. And I got a call around this time of year, a little bit earlier, from a group of nonprofits in Atlanta, Georgia. Some of them were already interested in us, and some just were a group that were getting together. And they said, hey, I knew that I do a lot of presentations and things like that. And they asked me, would you come in around Thanksgiving and teach us how to write a nice thank you letter, gratitude letter to donors? And I said, sure, So I did that. But in the process of starting to research and prepare for that, it really struck me that, I get those calls in November, December, and it bothered me a little bit. And with their permission, I said, can we just take this and take it beyond just a fundraising letter, and let's just blow it up into gratitude, and we will get to the fundraising letter and all that other stuff. And they were excited about it. And so now, I set myself up and I had to start doing all the research and doing all the other stuff. And I did the presentation. It went really, really well. And I got tremendous feedback from people how impactful it was to them. And in addition to the fundraiser letters, I asked them to sit while we're there and write a gratitude letter to somebody in their personal lives. And I started getting stories back very quickly about people reconnecting, people, fixing problems, and just people, spreading the joy, so to speak. And so I started doing a little more of that, got some interest from the for-profit space, and I started doing that. And then I said, I got to get some certifications and things like that. So I did a bunch of coaching certifications and other type of social psychology certifications. And then to speed it up a little bit, on my birthday one year, since I had about 120 nonprofit clients, I couldn't do the thing on Facebook where you say, hey, support my cause, because then, some of my clients are going to get upset. So I said, do me a favor, on my birthday, send somebody anywhere a gratitude letter. You don't have to tell me about it. You don't have to do anything about it. And same thing started happening. So getting all this feedback from people. And unbeknownst to me, my wife saw that, and she started going around to my friends and family and saying, can you write a gratitude letter to Dave for his birthday? And she collected them and printed them, put them in like a box with a bow. And one of those was the best present I ever got. And I take it out 3 or 4 times a year, not only on my birthday to look at it when I need an ego boost. But one of those was from one of my best friends who happens to be like my wife's second, third cousin or something like that. And he finished his letter by saying, I wanted to thank you for teaching that gratitude is not a platitude. It's an attitude of great magnitude, dude. And I called him up and we started talking and he said, you are the gratitude dude. So that's where it was born. The cape is a whole other story. Dion, you can get him at the 99-cent store. So that's how I became known as the gratitude dude. But then I really embraced it and I started, teaching and doing and researching and collaborating and creating platforms for expressions of gratitude. So that's how we got here, so to speak. And my kids think it's the corniest thing in the world, of course, as a dad, that's like half the job. So I think that's also good.
Yeah, probably the most important thing that any parent has to do is embarrass their kids. That's the manual, the only thing that the parents get when the kids are born. So let's talk for a moment about the psychology of gratitude. Why do we as human beings, why do we need gratitude? And frankly, as what do we gain for ourselves by expressing it? So we're looking at it from both perspectives, from the receiving perspective as well as the giving perspective.
Right. So, I mean, we're social animals to start with, right? That's all of our lives are in social situations, right? Whether they're speaking to a donor, whether they're speaking to a family member, whether they're sitting on a Zoom call or in person, right? We interact with others, and our relationships, are really what matter to us. When something goes wrong, when something goes right, we're thinking about who can I ask for help? Who can I share this joy with, right? We have those connections, and those things are like the most important things in our lives. And gratitude is really on a certain level, a social lubricant. It's a way of expressing, obviously, to others how we feel about them, and practiced gratitude and to use a froofy word, being more present in your gratitude forces us to do those things that we already want to do, but either our ego is holding us back or whatever else it is. So I think on the social side of things, that's why it's important. It helps us, create relationships in a way that are symbiotic, right? They're mutually beneficial, because when people do things for us and we take them for granted, so there's this, we're sort of training them not to do them anymore, or to do them for someone else who will appreciate them. So when we're showing gratitude, we're sort of encouraging them to do that and do that again. It's not a reason. I mean, that was a challenge. I mean, Ryan, you said like the both sides, what's good for me in it, right? And I always have this challenge, right? That there is so much good for each of us in gratitude, but it's almost oxymoronic, right? Gratitude is always about, the other person, and here I'm doing it because it's all these good things for me, right? So there is that challenge within gratitude, because when it comes to us, the way that our minds work, our biology work, right? It's so good for us. It's getting all of the, the dopamine going, and on both sides, when you express gratitude, when you receive gratitude. And even studies show when you see other people expressing gratitude that you're not even related to, you get a dopamine hit, right? There's something about it that's just the way that our minds are wired. So there's so much good that we can get out of ourselves, mental health, physical health, relationships, probably the primary one, so there's all these good things that you can get out of gratitude. And I always recommend that people, it's important. It's okay to do things because it's good for you, right? Like I take a shower because it's good for me, and I brush my teeth because it's good for me, but it's also good for other people. And the what I like to say is that sometimes it's good to try and find something that is less about me, where I'm not getting the benefit. You're always going to get the benefit because you feel it, but like sort of like anonymous gratitude type of stuff, where I used to do this more often pre-COVID, but I used to go to like Penn Station or something where there are a lot of soldiers or police officers, high security, and just like buy them a coffee card. Never going to see them again. It's never going to come back to me. I mean, I get now I look like a hero in front of you guys, but that's not the point of doing it, right? In the moment, like I just try to find things that aren't only good for you, but it's really good for you. I mean, it's symbiotic, it goes both ways. There really are tons, and if anybody's really interested in deep psychology and medical studies, I could certainly share them with you, point them to you, but they certainly exist. It's one of the challenges that I have when I do gratitude workshops, is waking up people to that's just not a fun and nice and cutesy thing, right? That there is real biology, there's real psychology behind it, and it's all there if anybody really wants to know about that, or if you want anything in particular that you're interested in hearing about.
Thank you for sharing that. It's actually very, very cool. One of the things that I like doing myself is whenever, almost anywhere, but very often in New York City in particular, if I bump into a cup, not bump into a cup, you're always bumping into cups all over New York City, I always make it my business as often as possible to really just go up to them and say, thank you, we appreciate you. Because unfortunately, especially with some of the challenges that we've had as a society over the last handful of years, you just want to make them feel good. But you, at the same time, I feel good too by saying that. And again, you're absolutely right. I'll never ever meet them again. I actually have a colleague and a friend at an organization who, whenever he flies, and he flies internationally a lot, he always, the first thing he does, he goes in when he's in the airport lounge or in the airport shops, he buys a bag of chocolates, and he puts a little note on the chocolates. And when he gets onto the plane, he hands it to one of the flight attendants and says, I just want to say thank you. Okay. Yes, you'll see where I'm sitting. That's not what this is about. He said, I just want to say thank you. You have a thankless task sometimes. And I just want to show my appreciation to you. So it's, it really does go a really long way. One of the things I wanted to change gears for a second. Since we have a small group here, I wanted to ask if each of you could, introduce yourselves for a second and let us know what area you're involved in the not-for-profit world. Because my next question actually relates to that, and I wanted to hear from our audience. So I'm just going to go in the order that I see on my screen. Dion, you're unmuted already. If you can do a very, very quick introduction.
Dion Nathan, I'm the executive director at Cath Hillel Day School in Boca Raton.
And what's your involvement in fundraising?
Technically, I oversee the development for our school, and we are actively looking to kind of build out our development program.
Great. Andy, you're up next.
Hi, my name is Andy Eichelbaum. I am the Director of Development at Strelitz International Academy in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I'm also an alumni of the school myself. So
fantastic. Joey.
How are you? Joey Small, Director of Institutional Advancement at Yeshivat Frisch, the Frisch School here in Paramus, New Jersey. And thank
Amazing.
you for this presentation.
You see, it's working already. Shimi, you're up next.
Shimi Kamenetsky. I'm the Executive Director of the Katz Yeshiva High School of South Florida here in Boca Raton, next door to Dion Nathan. I'm the Executive Director of the school. I also oversee development. We're also starting a process now to hopefully hire a Director of Development that the school has not had in a very long time.
Got it. Fagi, you're the last one up.
Oh, thank you. I'm not quite as high powered. I work as a copy editor and a copywriter, and I've done work for different nonprofits and fundraising materials also, fundraising books, the collections before holidays, that kind of thing.
Also extremely important. So my next question for Dave is really sticking within the realm of psychology, and as you saw, everyone pretty much on the call today is involved in some way in the world of fundraising. So I wanted to ask you, how can we use, as development professionals, how can we use genuine gratitude to enhance our donor solicitations?
So I think it's a little bit of a trick question. I don't know that a solicitation is necessarily the place for gratitude, but it could obviously plays a role in, obviously, I mean, at a certain level, yes. You do want to express your gratitude within a solicitation and everything like that. But I think as a broader question, how can we use it in fundraising development in general, I think I'll take it from there, and you'll redirect me or stop me if that's not where you want to go. But I think that I'll start with one of the biggest challenges that we see with gratitude, and it's came like sort of like from how I got the start in this area and everything like that, which is that it's like on the calendar, like it's scheduled. And by the way, I think there's a good thing with scheduling gratitude. I have like a love-hate relationship with Thanksgiving. Like I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a reminder. But if it's the only thing, then it's a challenge. And I think that's what happens commonly in nonprofits, especially larger nonprofits, where it's sort of scheduled, which number one is a little less authentic. Even if it is authentic, it's getting lost in the morass of everybody else who's expressing their gratitude at that time of year. So I think that one thing that can help is moving away from that scheduling and having something, either maybe it's more sporadic, maybe it's still scheduled, but it's not as set to a particular time of the year. I think also spacing it away from an ask, getting an expression of gratitude that's always followed by an ask. That's training people that you're only doing this in order to make the ask, and that's a challenge internally in our cultures and in our businesses and in our nonprofits, that we, when we express our gratitude to a team member or a leader or whatever that might be, and then say, and since you did such a good job, now we also want you to do this. And that starts, it's almost Pavlovian to them. And now once they hear it, they start cringing once they hear the expression of gratitude, because they know it's followed up with an ask or a task. So that's one thing. I think to space it out. I think to be a little bit more personal in our gratitude, and it's sometimes difficult if you have a very large space, and maybe some donor segmentation helps here, but certainly getting making an individual type of an expression of gratitude, where you're really showing that you know the person, you understand the person, what they did, or what effort they put in or sacrifice they made. That's something that's clearly important. It stands out. I think finding different ways to express gratitude. One of the things that I coach on is called the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. If you're familiar with the 5 love languages, which most people are, whether they've read it or not, but it's, 40 million seller book. So many people I've spoken to have told me it's saved their marriages and things like that. So there's the same concept, one of the same authors, that the way that we show appreciation in the workplace, and this isn't only with people we work with, I think it works as well for donors, is that not everybody hears our appreciation in the same way, or expects or appreciates appreciation in the same way. Yet we sort of broadcast, or we typify or typecast our expressions, like it's always the same type. So, whether it's not just a letter, but even a text, or, it depends on your relationship, a text. Some people who are comfortable with it, doing it in social media, certainly for volunteers and things like that. But when it comes to donors, doing things in different ways might get us into, I don't know if we're going to get into gifting and stuff like that, like appreciation gifts, but I'll hold on that if you want to wait. But I think that is something that's something can also make a very big difference, because it's just going to get to a level of genuineness, right? Just letting people know. Ryan, I've used your example in some of my workshops I'll summarize it. You can add to it, but when you had the photography workshop at EULA, and you took some of the work of the photographers, of the students, and then had the other students like handwrite a thank you with no ask or anything like that. So nice, so individual, like you're not getting that from anywhere else, right? That's showing that you cared enough to spend the time and to thank me as an individual with something a little special, and didn't have to cost a lot. It's not about the cost. So I think finding those individual expressions, being very particular, understanding that not everybody accepts appreciation in the same way. Those are some tips. Happy to answer any other questions in that regard.
First of all, thank you for flattering me. I didn't realize that you actually brought that concept up in your own teaching. But just to give everybody a quick synopsis of what Dave was talking about there, in a little bit more detail. When I worked at Eula Boys High School many years ago, I actually spoke about this in a previous webinar. One of the campaigns that I created was called the Thanks for Giving campaign. This is something that that is phenomenally easy for you guys to put into action. May not be able to be done for this year unless you can get it done really quickly, but there are ways that it can be done. And essentially what I did was I approached a student who was in the photography club, and he produced some absolutely really just amazing photography. And I asked him to send me his 10 best pictures. And of those 10, I picked 3 or 4 that I felt carried the best message that we were looking for. And I had them printed on note cards. And then we went to every single student in the school and asked them to handwrite a note to all the donors of the school. And by the way, that was donors from all the way up from the major, the 6 and 7 figure gifts, all the way down to the $18 gifts. Every single person who made a donation to the school received a thank you of sorts. Everything was scripted. I didn't want the students to come up with their own text because that could have been disastrous. But every single student wrote the thank yous, and we mailed them out to the donors. One piece of warning that I did do, and I think if you're working in a school in particular, it is crucial, absolutely crucial. I read personally every single card before it went out, because again, these are high school kids. And you never know what's going to happen. The worst thing that I saw was handwriting that I could not read. If I couldn't read it, I assumed that the donors couldn't read it, and those cards were unfortunately scrapped, and we had new ones written. But there was something very powerful having students write these letters and students saying thank you to donors. Doesn't necessarily work in every situation. Some places do push back a little bit, saying our students shouldn't be doing things like that. I happen to disagree because I really think that it makes a major impact on those donors. And that's
a lesson. It's a lesson for the students also. It's a lesson for
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think one other point I would add that I was thinking, impact. Obviously, I mean, it's probably something that you guys all know and you've heard, but we all need reminders that in donor thank yous, like the impact. Talking about the impact that they made, particularly if there is a sizable impact or something that you can quantify. I remember we got at the Generosity Series, we got a thank you letter from one of our clients who was trying for many years to do some type of fundraising to create a playground at their facility, and they weren't able to do it. And then when they joined our event, they were able to do it. And they sent us, a letter with pictures of the kids on the playground and saying, thanks to you, look at all the joy that these kids are experiencing. This is sort of like a foster care facility or something like that. And that is like, that's the goal right there. I mean, it's like impact. That's what we all want. We don't want to, thanks for your donation. Look at my office, right? We don't want to do that, but I think that impact is so important. And it can be something small. It could be even just a phrase. Like it's not a massive donation. It could be just that, really, change the way that this is happening or something like that.
Got it. Amazing. So, Dave, you mentioned, when you were talking about donors, you spoke about gifting to donors. So we want to explore just a little bit what your thoughts are on corporate, or in our case, organizational gifts to our donors and supporters. Tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I would start by saying it's also a very individual thing, particularly on the donor side. Some donors don't love the fact that they're giving money to you, and that even though it's not earmarked, but that you're using some of the budget to give something back to them. So certainly, if you don't know your crowd, you have to be very careful on the budgetary side. Nobody's going to get upset that you send them something small, but there are certain places that they go really big with these things, and it's a little challenging. There are in the peer-to-peer fundraising space a lot of times nowadays where they have sort of incentives for donors where you could check the box, no thank you, I don't want the jacket with your logo on it, and I'd rather you put that money to funding or something like that. But so I think there is, at least that be on the radar that not everybody loves it. But in terms of gifting, and if we're not breaking the bank, gifts are always about the thought that goes into them. Like if I was going to buy Ryan a gift, right? And we know this, right? It's not just the thought that counts, because when we say the thought that counts, it means that they thought about giving you a gift. But did they also think about what would be a gift that you would appreciate? That's a different thing. So if I was going to buy Ryan a gift, right? I'm not going to probably buy him, I don't know, a printer. He might need one. But I might buy him, I don't know, get you in trouble over here, Ryan, but I want to get him a mixology set or maybe a brander for his steaks with his initials on it or something like that, because Ryan's going to say, Dave really knows me, right? And that's what it's about. It's about so when you can do individual gifting, that for sure is the best, to really think about the person. If you have to buy, a whole group, so it's a little bit different. Food, I don't know what it is. Food is far and away always considered the best type of gift. But if you could combine food or something like that with an experience, my daughter just got me a present. So there's a company called Ashkenazi chocolate. They're considered one of the highest end chocolates, right? And it's chocolate, so that's always good. But it's a tasting kit, right? So it comes with like 4 bars and a mat that you lay out and teaches you how to taste. And we sat down with the family and we did it. So something that's experiential is very memorable, right? Those types of gifts, we remember experiences much more than we remember things, even if the thing is good. Another gift that I've received that I thought that worked very well was, it was like a candy jar. So it had the candy, which is now and good and yummy, but it also was a nice jar, and it wasn't like with someone's big brand on it, but it sat on my desk for a good 2 years, and I did from time to time think about it and think about the person. And certainly when I received it, I appreciate it and I thank them. So I think that experiences are amazing, and you could get very creative with these things, and they don't have to be expensive. Some people, send you something that you could put it together. Ryan, you just sent to me seeds. Apple, it was an apple with seeds implanted in the paper, right? That you plant. We haven't done it yet, I'll be honest, but I thought it was cool. And I mentioned it to my family. And I said, we have to get to do this, right? To do something like that, you got to hold it next to you so we can see it because of your background.
Oh yeah, because of there.
Yeah, there you go.
Here it is.
Right. So it's a thank you note. It also had Ryan's handwritten thank you to me, and has an apple, and you plant it and it grows, and it spoke about, whatever the messaging was of growth and experience and whatever else that is. Those types of things are super impactful. People do talk about, I got this amazing chocolate, but if you do something, if you experience something, and this is true also, by the way, internal gifting to staff and team members, same thing. Like obviously it's easier to really know them better and figure out what they want and then give it to them. I remember I was once in an internal thing, and we had to each give somebody a gift, and I knew this person, she was in love with cheese. And that was like she always talk about cheese. So I didn't just buy her cheese. I bought her a cheese tasting class, where she went and she tasted the cheese and learned about cheese tasting and everything like that. And 5 years ago, she still talks about it, right? Because you experience it, So I think that just to sum that up, like try to be as individual as you can, watch your budgets, obviously, experiences over things for sure. Food is a good safe bet, not with allergens and stuff like that, but in general, you can, and food could be themed out as well, depending on the time of year or the person or something like that. So I would put that in a bow right there, so to speak, on gifting, and any questions, happy to hear.
Great. Before we continue, any questions from anyone?
Not a question, an interesting thought that I experienced last year when it came to gifts. We selectively gave to people that had donated, our major donors, which we consider $10,000 and above. We were able to get them, some sort of gift around, we try to give something around each Chag, alternate different Chagim, different years. But I will say something that I did learn that had a little bit of a backlash. It's something to be sensitive to if you end up going down this road, is trying to make sure that people don't post those gifts on their social media. We all know that for some people, $1,000 or $5,000 gift is a much bigger chunk of change for them than for a millionaire to give $10,000. And they feel a little slighted. And if they find out that some people did receive the gift and somebody who everybody follows posted what a nice thoughtful gift from Frisch for me to be a donor, they don't share that, oh, as a trustee we received this gift. They don't write that. But it is something to be, it sort of has cautioned us as we move forward with that sort of as a strategy.
I don't love that happened to you, but I love the story because I hear two lessons. One is the one that you're saying that, you have to be careful about that. The second is that you see the value in a smaller gift sometimes, right? When you know that it's harder for that person to give it. You essentially said that, right? That it might be harder for somebody to give $1,000 than it is for a millionaire to give 5 or 10,000. So and appreciating that. So I love the story for both of those reasons.
Andy, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I was just curious. I'm definitely going down the path where I'm trying to find more innovative and experience-driven gifts for our donors. And I just keep finding myself coming into the same issue of where to do the research. So I was just wondering if there are any specific sites that you use or newsletters that you subscribe to that put out information for inspiration on these sorts of things.
So I can't think of anything offhand in terms of, a particular place or site. I have to look back. I do have a few things that I've used in the past that I can get your email, or I give you my email. I'll put it in the chat and then, or whatever, and get that to you. There certainly are places, offhand I can't think of it exact, particular places, but there are some places that is a little bit more in that realm, and then you could look at it on a budget standpoint, how much you want to spend and things like that. So it's a good question, but offhand I can't remember, but I'm sure I have some info on that, and I'll be happy to get it to you.
Actually, if I can also respond to Andy's question, a handful of years ago, I got something. It wasn't a gratitude gift. It was a gift from someone who wanted to get my attention and wanted to get a meeting with me. And they sent me, it was a really beautiful box, and inside was a URL, nothing else. So at first I was a little bit nervous, but I clicked on. I went to the website, and as the website popped up, the first thing it says, "Hi Ryan, so and so is interested in talking to you, but they want to send you a gift just to say thank you, and they've sent you a package of teas." And I was trying to figure out how on earth did this person know that I'm a huge tea person. Okay, I'm a tea purist, and I couldn't figure it out. So I actually asked her so first of all, she got the meeting, okay, because she was willing to do it, and she told me, she said it was very, very simple. She went onto my LinkedIn page and she saw that I happened to have posted something several times, I guess, about the fact that I like tea. Again, I grew up in the former British Commonwealth. I know my tea. And I thought it was a very, very interesting way of doing things. I'm going to try and find the name of the company that she used for it, because I also have the ability to choose what I wanted. If I went in and said, "Oh, you know what? I don't want the tea. I want something else," I could go in and choose any number of other gifts within that range. I thought it was kind of interesting. But as I said, I'm going to try. No promises. It was a good number of years ago, but I'm going to try and see if I can find that because it was kind of cool.
We have a technical term for the type of research that she did, which is called stalking. But it's great it reminded me of another story. This wasn't for a donor, but I was trying to get, in the world of sponsorship, which is probably relative to all you guys, to get sponsors for events or something like that. I was always very particular, even though I was in the for-profit space with the Generosity series. I always wanted to get sponsors that really met our mission well. So I always wanted to get kind bars, right? I always wanted to get kind bar, kind company. And I tried so many different things. I ambushed them in their offices. I mean, come in screaming and yelling, but I just showed up because I had been trying for all this time, and they just kept shutting me down. I did some research. I read the book that the guy who started it, and I knew that when he was a kid and he was growing up, that he worked really hard and he had barely any money, and his one reward was his Orange Crush soda that he would buy. I went out, I bought him an Orange Crush vintage shirt, and I sent it to him. Nothing worked. Then I came across this thing. I don't know if it still exists, but it's amazing. It's called Complete the Pair. It's a sneaker, it gets delivered to you in the regular mail. It's a sneaker. It's not in a box. It's wrapped in clear plastic, and it has a QR code on it, where my message is, right? And the whole thing of it is, I've got the other sneaker, and when we get together, we put it in a special package and we mail it off to children in Africa to give them a pair of sneakers, which reminded me also of the Ashkenazi chocolate thing that my daughter got me. One of the reasons that it was on her radar, because she had heard me talking about the culture of the company. I do company culture coaching. She heard me talk about the culture of the company and how much I liked it, and also that they're like they're into like they only deal with fair trade farmers. They pay more than market rate, and every one of their cocoa farmers from all over the world get a share of profits. So it was like one of these type of gifts that like is getting everything going. So that's also a thing. If you can get all different angles like that, is great. But Complete the Pair was a great, and it worked, by the way. I got the sponsorship. That's the one thing. The Orange Crush didn't get it. I don't even know if he ever saw. Someone's probably wearing that shirt. He never saw it. But the Complete, and there's also another one. Send a ball or something like that. Send a ball. You literally get a ball in the mail, and you magic marker your message on it. It's not so much a gift thing necessarily, or it could be a great, had a ball with you last night, or whatever else it is. There's a story about a guy who figured out that certain sizes get mailed without boxes, and one of them is a watermelon. You could send a watermelon in the mail, and he used to do that. He said people loved it. The mailman hated me, but it's something that it's something different. It's food, but it's weird. It's different. It raises an eyebrow and it creates some thought. So all of those things I think work pretty well.
I hope they leave it on the front porch, not try to stick it through the mail.
Joey put up Joey put up in the chat snappy.com for gifts. I don't know if you saw that, Andy.
Yes, I was actually about to say thank you to Joey for that. It's definitely a great idea. Well, thank you. Again, these are great ideas, and the whole goal is to find practical things that we can use to simply say thank you to our donors and supporters. So we covered a number of these, but one of the things I wanted to ask, Dave and many of the people on this on the webinar know that I'm a very, very big believer in nurturing the culture of philanthropy within an organization. And when I say culture of philanthropy, it's not only internally, it's something that I believe that can continue externally as well to all your donors and supporters. So I wanted to ask this question, and this I guess will be the last question of the day. How does creating an internal culture of gratitude impacts an organization's culture of philanthropy?
So it's an excellent question. I think that what we start seeing when we're building a culture of gratitude and an internal culture that's authentic, right? And we could talk a drop if we have 2-3 minutes about that, how we could take some steps to do that. But I think what ends up happening is, in general, just people are happier. People they're more checked in, they're more clicked in, they're happy to do the things they're doing. And I think more than anything else, it's like everything in psychology, right? That when something becomes top of mind, you become better at it, you start noticing, right? You buy the new sweater, you buy the new car, all of a sudden you're a big influencer. Everybody's buying that car, right? No, people were buying that car before and that sweater before, but because you've been thinking about it and you've been doing it, now it's on your radar. I think it's called the Mannheim-Bonhoeffer effect or something like that. But the things that are in your head that are top of mind for you, then you start noticing them. So when you are working on your gratitude individually, within the company culture, personally, in your family cultures, that becomes top of mind for you. And then you start realizing things, you start breaking down things, you start realizing, hey, you know what? I really appreciate that. Not only that person gave this nice check, but like that he or she actually reached out for me. You start noticing, I think, a little more details, and you start breaking down things little by little in your mind, and it becomes top of mind. Then you notice that about your donors, and you're more appreciative to them before a gift, after a gift. There's a great book called Thanks a Thousand. It's about a guy who wanted to thank everybody who was involved in making his coffee. So he starts with his barista, and he wants to meet the barista's parents because, you know, he has to thank them for bringing this wonderful person into the world. And he traces it all the way back. He goes to the plantations. He goes right, and that type of mindset. Even though we're not doing that, none of us have the time to do that. But to that mindset where every little thing, every step is so important, and we start appreciating them, then we'll start appreciating also our donors, our supporters, our volunteers, our teams. And I think that that's how it's, so yes, thank you, AJ Jacobs, correct. That's the book. And it flows out. I think it's that idea of being top of mind, and that it works. You'll see that it works for you individually, you see that it works for your teams. It's gonna work. These are also, our donors are people, right? So they're not ATMs, so it's gonna work for them as well. And I would just put in a quick pointer for building internal cultures of gratitude. It's not as simple as it sounds. But if it comes from an authentic place and it's not forced and it's not one size fits all, where today, I mean, it's not a bad thing to get into these types of small groups and say, everybody, let's go around the room and say something we're grateful for today. Okay, sometimes in a small group that will work, but some people hate to talk about their lives or talk publicly or something like that. And now we're setting them up to like, gratitude, I don't want anything to do with it. So it's individualizing it just like we do with gifts. And really, maybe that's just like the wrap up for the whole thing, is that, you know, people are individuals, they express gratitude differently, they experience gratitude differently, they get different gifts, right? They get different things that they you know, that work for them. Sure.
Great. You know, Dave, thank you so much really for sharing your keen insights and your actionable ideas really so graciously with all of us today. It really is, it's greatly appreciated. I strongly recommend that you guys follow Dave on LinkedIn. Simply Dave Linn, that's Linn. I think if you look him up as a gratitude dude, I'm not sure if you find him on LinkedIn that way, but
well, with the hashtag you will.
With the hashtag, there you go. Okay. Please stay tuned for details about the next webinar that's going to be coming up. I'm still deciding whether it's going to be in December or January. I want to give everybody a break. But I really want to thank all of you really for joining us today, and want to wish you, you know, have an amazingly grateful Thanksgiving, and looking forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thank you all.